Hi, thank you so much for joining us for this ScotWeek podcast. And this week we have Daniel B joining us. Say hi, Daniel.
Hello, good day to you all.
Good news.
And good day to you.
So, Daniel, where are you joining us today?
Well, I mean, you find me in Los Angeles, in the height of Hollywood. I've been not that high, the lows of Hollywood, possibly. That's possibly more likely.
The Hollywood hills of highs and lows.
Well, actually, I'm right next to the Roosevelt, so I'm in the low bit of the high bit of the low bit of the. Well, I'm just in the middle of the mess of it, right next to the Chinese.
Oh, right.
Building they hold the Oscars, actually.
Oh, right.
Yes, I know exactly where you are.
Yeah.
I'm basically I'm sandwiched between the Magic Castle and the Roosevelt Hotel.
Oh, wonderful! I love the Magic Castle.
That was such fun.
Yeah.
Where the magic happens.
Where the magic happens, indeed. So tell us, Daniel B, who are you? What do you do? You're such a man of mystery.
Oh, I think I should probably now just stick to that lovely intro and say nothing, because if you call the man of mystery, that's it can't get any better than that, can it? I mean, how does one define oneself? That's extraordinary. Great question. I mean, I'm definitely Scottish. I'll admit to half Scottish, if that's okay. But I got dragged up for the first 24 years in Scotland, which means when I came to California and went for my first medical, they went, "Oh, well, you don't have any skin damage." I'm like, "Well, no, because I haven't actually seen the sun for 24 years. Of course, no one from Scotland gets skin damage unless you go to Magaluf." But I'm definitely Scottish. I live in Los Angeles, and if you sort of cut me in half and looked at the rings on the inside, it would say publicist and PR person. But my Scottish credentials probably go. I know a little bit about. I wrote a little book about Robert Burns and things like that. But to some, I'm a juggler. To some, I'm a businessman. To some, I'm a motorcyclist. To some, I'm a hotelier. To some, I do have a few lives. You're absolutely right, Kelsey. You're right.
You do. I'm reading here that I read that you were voted to BAFTA 2013.
Oh,
how
thank
was
God
that?
Well, thank goodness you said that, because you didn't actually go back in the full set of clippings which said I was voted one of Scotland's most eligible single men, which is a long time ago. That scared me there. But yes, I was behind Tony Curran. Yes, I was behind Gerard Butler. Yes, I was behind 49 of the 50 people. It's BAFTA is, of course, kind of special. I mean, it's the British Academy of Film and Television has such a prestigious name, and you apply and you get sort of vetted, and you have to have people write letters for you, and you've got to be in the entertainment industry in any one of its guises. But I think I got in because I exec produced a TV series, as well as I've launched several films around the world and stuff like that. But I guess I've been in media and entertainment for a wee while. Too long.
How did you get into media entertainment? What was your journey?
Oh dear, this question. I ran off the circus when I was 17, so I wasn't actually joking about the juggling bit. And it's been downhill ever since then, really. Dealing with
this.
Dealing with clowns ever since. Yeah. No, I mean, I literally was a juggler and a fire breather, and performed in a few countries and did a bit of all that, but not to the performance standards of either of you two, who can actually do it for a living and be wonderful. I'm afraid I was amateur professional, or professional amateur. I don't know which way around it is, but it's yeah. So I started to organize the biggest circus conventions in the world, and from doing that, I did all the publicity. From the publicity, I got a job working in public relations and moved to London, and went to get my fame and fortune in London, then and did enough of that and came to Los Angeles.
Okay.
That's wonderful.
How long have you been in LA then?
I've only 9.5 years in LA.
Okay.
But it's, I mean, I've done a bit of time. I feel like, I don't know, when do you become, I remember asking people, if you move to London, you go there, and I was there for 13 years, is when do you become a Londoner? Same question. when do you become a Los Angelino or Los Angelina? But when does that happen?
When you start to call it home. And you think it's home, and you don't call somewhere else home anymore. I guess. I don't know. I've been here 30 years now. I was also born in Texas, so that I feel like this is home now.
So am I now sandwiched between two Texan girls?
Yes.
Yep.
One day we'll do a documentary called Two Girls from Texas.
and we will watch it, and we'd be delighted to see that. I think that would be. I've always felt really welcomed in Texas. I think there was a definite truth to Texas that you do feel very welcome, you do feel very open, and as a Brit or as a Scot, your first impression might be one that you might feel a little bit scared of it, or you've been told not to mess with it, you think of guns and all that sort of stuff. And actually the exact opposite is the case. It just feels always very, you're welcome.
Oh, good. It's so nice, lovely to hear about your home state.
That's true.
Yeah. So what was it like growing up in Scotland then? Because every time I go to Scotland, I feel very at home and very much welcome. So what was that like for you?
I mean, in hindsight, it was bloody miserable. I mean, I know we're meant to talk about Scotland being fabulous, and it is, and it has so many things, but it was pretty shit, actually. I mean, Scotland is not easy, and Scotland in the 70s and 80s was kind of, I'm not going to romanticize its toughness and what a terrible time I had, but Scotland's quite real. It's not a soft touch, and I went to the regular schooling system of Scotland. Saw things that I wouldn't wish on anyone. I don't want to romanticize it, that's unfair, but I was in the catchment area of the schools that train spotting was based upon. And a lot of that, I was at, Urban Welsh's cousin was in my class. It's that sort of thing where it was quite real. And we can talk about rolling heathery hills up in Aviemore, and we can talk about the beauty of the lochs and the fantasticness of the people and the heart and the drink and the whatever. But the underbelly of it that I found myself far too close to was was just normal. It was just normality. But when I used to go to school on a bicycle, and you'd get up in the morning, it'd be raining, and you'd get soaked to the bone, and then you'd get to school and you'd take off as many clothes as you possibly could, put them on the radiator to dry out. And then at 3:30 it was dark again, and you get back on your bike, you get soaked through to your undercrackers yet again. It's pretty rough. And a lot of Scotland, it's lovely to look at Scotland in the rearview mirror and be able to parachute in and get the good bits. It's a wonderful country, but it leaves you passionate about Scotland. I'm hugely passionate about Scotland. I love it, and it grounds you, I think, culturally and ethically and societally and all of those things. The solid starting point is rock solid. It's Aberdonian granite, or as strong as the hills anywhere. It really is, but it's not gentle.
Did you grow up in Glasgow?
Edinburgh.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm always noted. Everyone goes, "Oh, Edinburgh, it's all sure, it's romantic, and sure, it's all there." But it. I remember kids coming to school without shoes on, literally. Someone coming with people coming to. This is sounding terrible. Kids would come to school with chains and big heavy knives and that. God Almighty! But here to tell the stories. But it does ground you in knowing I can walk down any street in any city in the world and hopefully not get I'm home here to tell the stories. So it is romantic. It is beautiful. But your feet are anchored. If you're Scottish, you're anchored. I think
that's a wonderful way of putting it. And it's like here in Los Angeles, I don't know if either of you have driven through Compton or Watts lately. I guess wherever you live, there are places and areas of concern, and that's a really good point that you make, because as much as I'm in Scotland every year at least once, I am only seeing the most beautiful places. I'm there basically as a tourist and to visit family. I don't actually work there. I don't have to make it back there.
No, but it's and one of the first things I ever did when I came to LA was drive down to Compton because I wanted to see it, and I didn't go in as a crazy sort of raj. I went in going, I loved NWA in 1987 and 88, so I wanted to see what Compton was about. And I'm like, is that stupid? Was that the wrong thing to do? But I would just go in, and I was like, and actually it was fine. Of course it was fine. And again, if you approach anyone with a humanity, if anyone had approached me, which they didn't, which is step one. Step two, if someone approaches you, speak to them. I'm just a guy from Scotland, and if you want to have a go at me about anything, great, have a go. And I don't just mean physically; I mean on any level. Yeah, sure, come on then, do it. And Compton was like that for me, or some place of Florida, and you turn the wrong street up in Florida, or an hour outside of Miami, you turn the wrong street in the wrong corner, you'll find yourself in some of the scariest places on the planet. But it's still not Muirhouse in Edinburgh during the 70s and 80s.
Oh, speaking of Compton, I almost forgot about this. I was hired to play pipes for the movie Brave. When
there we go.
Brave
Beautiful.
came out,
Beautiful.
Disney had me come in. They went to one of the community centers in Compton, and they had me come in and play pipes when they had a screening for the film Brave, and they were handing out all these goodie bags. People were lined up to come in. Just let me tell you, and they had never heard the pipes before. That was a surreal experience for me. I'll never forget.
But presumably you were welcomed on a very basic human level of this is an amazing sound, this amazing curiosity, you have history, they were curious about Brave, which of course was a beautiful film. But it's you came with folklore and history.
It was incredible. I found myself showing my instrument, all the different parts. They wanted to know everything about it. I pulled it apart and showed them all the reeds. It was surreal. It was amazing. But there you go.
Basic human bonding across a culture that we all share and love, and hence the three of us are talking here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been with the circus. Get over that.
A failed juggler. What else can I tell you? A very failed fire breather, but that's another story for another day. That's a much longer story. That'll be on your X-rated podcast.
When you bring the whiskey out to make it X-rated.
It's best offer I'm going to get today.
Well, I was thinking of, this rich history and kind of having that grounded roots that you're talking about, and the landscape of growing up in Scotland. Given our current situation with world events, how has it been talking to some of your family and friends still back in Scotland, dealing with isolation and do you
or normality, as we call it in the Highlands? I think, but you have to put this into context, and I know context isn't particularly fashionable, and facts and statistics are often skewed in weird ways in these isolation days of our lockdown here. As I sit in Los Angeles County, there's 10 million people. In comparison to Scotland's 5 million people. But Scotland has double the number of cases, but half the population size of LA County. And so Scotland is going through a larger problem with the coronavirus. But in LA, I think there's more risk here, in the sense that there's more risk for communities that have no access to healthcare, that have no basic society, that people have to go out to work. I mean, if you're in Scotland, which of course basically invented most of the things in modern healthcare, be it penicillin or X-rays or, insulin or any of those basic now daily functions, you come to LA where you possibly are someone who's not got papers, you're living in a community where you have to go to work, you're having to mix with the public that have similar poverty. It's kind of crazy. So I think, you know, these things are all about context. I feel very safe in LA because I'm lucky enough to have I don't have a job anymore, but, you know, I'm lucky enough to have had money and incomes and all those things. But a lot of people in LA will find it really tough. Would I rather be in Scotland? Not really, because again, I think the British government made a complete mess of it. So you asked the question, I'll give you the political answer. But I think hiding in the sunshine of LA is always going to be better.
Absolutely. And what are some fun things that you're doing to keep yourself safe and sane right now?
Drinking, obviously, drinking.
Naturally.
And you know, there are advantages. You know, I mean, it's. I mean, thank God there's whiskey. I mean, you have to be honest with these things. I mean, it's. I don't know how much you two drink, or even choose to drink, or whether you can drink at all.
Oh goodness, really?
Well, come on then. I mean, do you both drink whiskey?
Yes,
very much so.
absolutely. Oh, absolutely. All the time. I mean, you can't be a bagpiper and not drink whiskey. People give you a quake full of whiskey all the time, and you have to drink it and upside down. And yeah.
It's the old story. There's one type of Scottish person that's an alcoholic, and some that are drinking, and some that have had to give up. Kind of true.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hang on, how do you
I don't think.
How do you drink it?
I drink mine neat with just a little tiny bit of water in it.
Okay.
I'm neat all the time, mostly because I usually am piping and I don't have access to water, so I've just gotten used to drinking it that way. So
it's much easier. It's less to spill when you're driving.
Yes, that's right.
Or when you're come on, Daniel.
I mean, exactly. I mean, it's. I don't know, because a mate really recently introduced me to this in Scotland. He's like, no, the Zen of Whisky, and a shout out to Dr. Fraser on this one. He does this whole course about the Zen of Whisky drinking, and the Zen of drinking, and he's like, try it with sparkling water. I'm like, don't be so ridiculous. Or try it with soda. And it just lengthens the drink in the same way as water opens it out and stuff. But it also just brings it to a different place entirely. And it also hydrates you. And you're sort of showing respect to your own body while showing respect to the makers and not destroying tastes and flavors. And I was like, actually, it's kind of refreshing. So I'm sort of into that just now. But
what whiskey do you prefer? What is your favorite?
I mean, I haven't really been a big whiskey drinker for a long time, but the first bottle of whiskey I drank, probably in one sitting, which was possibly an error, was this lovely blend called Adelphi. I'd literally drank a bottle at a sitting with a few friends. And it was this blend called Adelphi that no one's ever heard of. It was made in Glasgow. Fantastic stuff. Can't get it. Don't know where to get it anymore. So I have to jump to things like Lefroy, but a shout out to Sam Heughan, who just created Sassenach, and we helped launch it at our Burns Supper earlier in 2020. And yes, again, even though it's a blend, absolutely delicious. I mean, really good. And I think a couple of bottles might have fallen into my sporran. And let's just say there's not much left. It's delicious.
I was gonna say, it was there that night at your party. It was so much fun, and yes, I woke up the next morning with a hangover. It was very well worth it, and yes, yeah. I'm so impressed when I first heard or read that it was a blend. I was curious, but I'm a Speyside girl, and his whiskey is a little bit more on the sweeter side, and I loved it, and it's so easy to drink.
Oh God, it does. I mean, I know these are cliched words, but it does just slip down. But he's put it in a special barrel, which brings that sweetness. The sherry barrels, I think it is, and you know, I mean, obviously Sam Heughan is totally responsible for boosting Scottish tourism exponentially. And well, between him and Gerard Butler, they've basically doubled Scottish tourism Hang on, here's a statistic for you. British tourism was up 2% a couple of years ago, but Scottish tourism was up 27%. And it's basically down to Sam Heughan and his Outlander and Gerard Butler still being a dishy young man. And those two boys have single-handedly, I think made Scotland fantastically accessible, and Sam with now extraordinarily drinkable whiskey. So it's, great news.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Glencoe last summer, for the first time, Glencoe was like the 110 freeway at 5 p.m. in Los Angeles. Believe it. It was bumper to bumper cars. You couldn't pull up anywhere. I thought, good heavens. But yeah, you've seen in the last 5 years, especially, there's been such, and even on the 500 up in a very remote area, there's just so many cars and buses and people. But that's a wonderful thing. And I'm hearing the stories from Graham, who's a good friend of mine, talking about how he and Sam were on the road in an RV last September, doing their Clan Lands podcast, which just got picked up. And he said Sam was driving and they drove all over the Highlands and stayed in this RV. And
yeah, incredible. But it's. I very much hope that Scottish tourism will recover following the virus, and I hope it does bounce back. But it's going to take a bit of extra effort by us all, and I mean the three of us, and Sam. He's got a slightly bigger following than us three, and it's going to be really important. And Sam has sort of brought. The amount of young American ladies like yourself that just watch this show and just sort of go for it and get it, and just have never been to Scotland before, but they're now all rushing off trying to find rugged Scottish men.
Uh-huh.
Great. We welcome you with open arms, open bottles, and open hearts.
It's wonderful to see. I first went to it was 2009 at the gathering in Edinburgh when Dana Gambleton was giving a little talk over down at Holyrood, and no one had heard of her, and it was just the books, and this was before it was picked up, as anything to be produced on television, and there were maybe 30 people in the room and talking about, and this was just 2009, and how things have changed, and you're right, how things have changed with tourism and everything else, and it's fantastic.
But again, it does come around by people like yourselves putting energy in to create ScotWeek. You felt the ability to do it. You felt the wish to do it. You felt the zeitgeist of doing it. You then have blood, sweat, and tears put into it, and it will. I'm not saying you're looking for payback, but it will give you energy back. Scotland is about outward looking, and you are doing that. You are spreading the good message of what is quite a good nation. We're currently on the right side of history. I think we've got a lot of making up to do, but Scotland is doing a lot of things right, and you're promoting it, and you feel the wish to promote it, and that's why you should be warmly embraced.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. Kelsey works tirelessly as well. Kelsey is, I don't think I could have done this without her hard work, and she's on it, and we work tirelessly, and it's been a labor of love, honestly. I've been around all things Scottish for so many years now, and traveling back and forth, and for me it's like, wow, that we could actually do this and help Scotland in some way, shape, or form, and put an eye on entrepreneurialism and small business, but also, industry over there. And so we're not just having a party here, we actually have goals and things we're trying to accomplish that I think are good. And so the more people that can help and jump on board like yourself and be supportive, the better.
Of course. And again, the work that Rory does in the Scottish government out of Washington, it's, he does a lot of hard work. And actually, the British government at this point still represents us, and they do work hard. you know, we are all in it together. Oh dear, no, that was a political slogan. I didn't mean that. But but obviously Scotland is superior, so that's great.
It is. I agree. So we're really reading a little bit about some of the people you represented. I don't know how much you want to talk about that, or you've read, and you know, I've always been a great fan of Andrew Lloyd Webber,
who is of course partly Scottish.
You know, I didn't know this. How did I not know this?
Yeah, and I now I'm going to sort of. I mean, yes, I was Andrew's publicist from October '97 till June 2001. And I mean, when did I last see him? I last saw him. I stayed at the house 18 months ago. Well, I imagine I just stayed at the other house last year. But I mean, Andrew's great. I mean, he's still the only bona fide. We all use the word genius quite a lot, but he's actually the only bona fide genius I met. His genius is just remarkable. And I don't just mean his composing and musical genius. You can just see his brain is it's on a different stratosphere from mere mortals. But I mean, Andrew, I mean, I think I can consider him someone that I know and knows me, and we still communicate. And I know his family very well. I know his wonderful daughter Imogen, and the younger one Bella, and I just consider them friends. I do now. But it was an interesting way to start my publicity career, representing him.
That's fantastic. Do you have any other favorites of people you've represented? Fun stories? Anything you'd like to share?
I mean, we'd run out of time. You'd run out of magnetic tape on this podcast if such a thing were being used. I mean, I'm very lucky. I've worked extremely hard until about 3 weeks ago. And it's been great. I mean, I hope it continues, but I mean, I was thrilled to work with a childhood hero in David Soul, who was obviously in Starsky and Hutch for the older members of listening crew here. I'm working with him, and his musical career in London was pretty special. And to work with your idols, and to and then find yourself working. I worked with Hugh Hefner for years. And then as you come through, it's great to see younger talent coming through now, and seeing people, just seeing more to do with friends at this point, but seeing great broadcasters like Laura Whitmore come through in Britain, and see Jamila Jamil come to America and smash it. And I've known Kat Deely for years and years, and Kat, well, she's been to a few of my brothers. So again, there's a few more whiskies, and I'll tell you the story. But it's a good story as well. But just seeing those sort of younger talent come through as either friends or as people that that I know very well, and that's almost more thrilling. I think, yes, entertainment is business; it is show business, but it's just thrilling to see people come through.
Well, I hear the passion in your voice, and it seems like you just really love what you do, which is the key to life. One of the great keys in life is to love what you do.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong again. I'm sounding negative again, but it's the Scottish way. Some of it's tough. Mm-hmm. I mean, being a publicist it's not all photo shoots and glamour and red carpets. And if you're on a red carpet, you're working. Yeah. I mean, you walk in the carpet the way out, you crawl on the way out if you've done it properly. It's
exactly.
Got to do it that way.
What's the difference between press in Scotland and maybe the UK at large versus press in the US?
Oh, really simple question with a very long answer. I mean, that's great. There's a huge difference. There's a massive difference. Britain had 11 national daily newspapers, and there's a hint in the word news is they would all compete against each other. Whereas America today still doesn't really have a national newspaper. And sadly, through the virus, a lot of local newspapers will close over this. So the media landscape is immediately different. But then, because I'd looked after Lloyd Webber internationally and worldwide, I'd always looked into American media from a different perspective, from Britain looking into America. And then when I looked after Hugh Hefner, when he was coming over to Britain, he's a magazine editor, writer, curator, but he was really cautious about the European media because he realized it's just a sharper pit of viperous snakes and hungry. I mean, it really is. It's European media and British media specifically. I mean, it's hard work. But whereas in America you have freedom of speech completely, not many publications take that liberty. And fact checking in America is far more deliberate. And if you've made an inaccuracy in America, you go to they will correct much quicker than the British media, which is a bit weird because you can actually just make a story up in America and it's up to the accused to suggest and prove that they are right, whereas in Britain it's the other way around. A newspaper, if they print something, the onus is on them to prove that their story is correct. So there are very few comparisons between British media and American media. And the legal systems that protect either one and both make it really a deeply complex piece. So I still feel, as a British publicist who used to deal with sort of crisis management in the UK, if you've been trained under UK media, under the pressures of deadlines in the UK, you can mop up America in a fraction of the time an American publicist can. Quick example. I was working for a music school in LA called the Colburn School. And the LA Times company said, we've got a story, it's going to be front page. And I'm like, okay. They said, what is your response? And I'm like, okay, how many minutes do I have? And they went, minutes? I went, well, it's 3:00 in the afternoon. When are you going to press? They went, oh, this is in 10 days' time. This is like a hold the front news story. It literally was front page news in the LA Times 10 days after the thing that sparked it happened.
Wow.
And I remember sort of going, I had 10 days to take out the arts editor, the news editor. We went for lunch. We all had a conversation. We talked about the piece. We sculpted the piece. Whereas in Britain, you would have had 40 minutes.
Wow. That's insane.
And that's because LA doesn't have another newspaper that's biting at the heels of the same story that they need to go to print to further. The sort of hold the press. Mm-hmm. Doesn't happen in America.
Wow.
So as much as I love USA publicists, when it comes to news management, I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's good to know.
When you're in trouble, phone a British publicist. Do not phone an American publicist. Not that I'm saying that either of you two would be in trouble.
It's good to know. Keep that in whiskey. Kelsey, what whiskey would you like tomorrow?
Whichever one. As long as you come with it, that's all I ask.
That's fantastic. Well, what are you most looking forward to after this whole quarantine is over? Do you have a sort of a plan of, how to hit the ground running, anything?
This is the first break I've taken in 30 years. And it is great. And I'm actually really enjoying it. And I know a lot of people aren't, and I shouldn't sound too jolly and upbeat about it, but I'm actually loving the opportunity to actually take a breather. Mm-hmm. But conversely, the first thing I'm going to do is jump on a plane and go back to Britain and see mum and dad, because they're in Edinburgh and I'm not. And with a bit of luck, they'll be there waiting for me when I get back. And that is tough. And it is hard being away for anyone who is not next to their family, is when you have worry from 5,000 miles away. It's, we are 5,000 miles away. We're halfway around the globe from Scotland, and that's tough. So I think that trip might happen really fast. And then I'm going to go and hide in Morocco and put my feet up and sit in the sun and sit in that world, because that's a great place to hide.
Yeah. So tell me about Morocco. What do you have going on there?
My brother and I bought a house there a number of years ago. And it's now a fully running hotel, two of them. probably about to go and build the third. So I have a bunch of hotels there, and it's fun. It's a beautiful country, and it kind of works. It just works. It's only 3 hours away from Britain, so I strongly recommend it. It's a great country to just visit and have a life there and have a business there. And whiskey's not so good there, but they put a lot of sugar in the tea and call it Berber whiskey, but it's really not. It's not good enough.
That would be the only reason to leave. I mean, if I had a hotel in Morocco, I don't know if I would want to leave.
Yeah, it's really hot. Yeah, no, and bizarrely, my place in Marrakesh, the climate is almost absolutely identical to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And the plantation, the plants are the same. The vegetation and the plants are almost carbon copy. You can have the bougainvillea, you have the jasmines, you have these amazing and just cactuses, and it's really quite uncanny actually. So imagine Los Angeles, but with a respectful. All the nonsense has been taken out.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Not quite all the nonsense. There's quite a lot of nonsense in Morocco too, but we're not allowed to talk about such things.
Indeed. Oh my goodness. And so your book on how to throw a burn start, how did that come about?
Yeah, I never thought I'd be an author, but a mate who runs a publishing company, bizarrely out of Chile, he's like, we want to do something about burns. Would you write us a book? And I'm like, sure. Because I'd always hosted the Burns suppers for Soho House with Vanessa, who was the head of membership sort of worldwide, and Vanessa and I used to host it together, and it always used to get a bit rowdy and got a bit silly, and it got really silly. And then I came to LA and hosted one here for Soho House, and then I was lucky enough to team up with the wonderful Ross King and Chantal Rickards, who was the CEO of BAFTA LA at the time, and we created a Burns supper for Los Angeles, really, to raise money for BAFTA. And it coincided that my mate asked me to write a book, so I sat down. He gave me, I think, 5 days to write it, so I just sat down with a lot of booze, because I'm a really strong believer in write drunk and edit sober. And so I sat and I just drank myself into it's only a 50-page book on how to hold a Burns supper, and I'm not a fan of the sort of Burns suppers that are horribly formal and very straight and very rigid. I always ask myself the question and come up with obviously a ridiculous answer, but ask myself, Robert Burns, who died age 37, would he have wanted a straight? If he were 35 today or 36 today, do you really want pomp and ceremony? No, you want to get lashed, see your friends, kiss the 5 girls, find the 5 hottest girls in the room and kiss them all, because I really believe he would have romanced ladies. He would have drunk the booze. He would have eaten the food. He would have been the first on the dance floor. He'd be kissing one girl in one corner. I mean, you know what I'm saying. So my book was about trying to reflect, yes, traditions are great, but also, come on, it's 2020 or 2018 or 22nd. I can't remember when I wrote it, but let's look at it differently, because we're not stuck in 1759. We're not stuck in 17 or 1802. We're not there. We're in a different time. But take the best bits, much like take the best bits out of Scotland and amplify them, and don't necessarily look at the bad bits like I have. But there's great bits about Burns, and there's great bits, and I just wanted to bring out the good bits about how to create a modern Burns supper, because it's not 1759.
Yeah, I hope it includes once in a while Horace, the poem Horace, the Monty Python Horace, which I love to do personally.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So much fun.
But the thing is, Burns, of course I'm going to say he's relevant today, but his poetry still works. And if we look at the most basic thing of a man's a man for all that, it's a person is a person. It doesn't matter who you are or where you are. And that basic form of humanity, I still believe is relevant. And that poem being used to help end slavery in America was a deeply profound moment for America. I mean, I can't remember how many signatories of the original Constitution of America, but I think it was something like 12 signatories that were involved in the Constitution and Declaration were all Scottish.
Yes.
You know, the Scottish roots in this country are in America are hugely powerful. But that's history. But what's today?
Yeah.
And what are the modern moments of Scottishisms in America today? And what would Burns think, and what would he do? I mean, Burns would be a fantastic influencer. He would have the most profound poetry on his Instagram. He would have, his quotes on Instagram would get you up most days.
Yes.
And actually probably,
fantastic.
I might put you down most evenings. But it's
with a pretty girl.
Yes. I mean, he would take his plough and cut you a furrow. I mean, he would absolutely be phenomenal. He would whisper poetry into your ear in a way that you would just wobble.
I think maybe, Daniel, you need to bring the helm up. You need to, maybe you could do this. Maybe you could be the one to throw something out there. I think you understand Burns maybe better than most, and with a little modern flair. I think people would really enjoy that sort of thing, especially right now.
Well, you're very kind, but I mean, I think I would rather have an artist do it, and I'll promote them rather than be the artist. And there's nothing a publicist. I mean, never trust the publicist who likes the public domain. Whoops, I'm currently speaking on a podcast. That doesn't work, does it? Publicists should be neither seen nor heard, in my opinion.
So, is there a modern Robbie Burns? Who would it be?
I mean, come on. How can it not be? How can it be Gerard Butler? I mean, Jerry has to be a modern Burns.
I was going to think that just watching how he slaps, well, maybe I shouldn't say this on a podcast.
Slaps my ass. The way he slaps my ass. Yes, thank you. Yeah, there's something, but when I should disclose, Jerry, I've known Jerry 20 years. But when he walks into a room and he gives a woman his focus, the knees go weak. And I bet Robert Burns did that. And I think there is the power in the same way as when an actress, an actress walks into a room and can grab all the attention. So can an actor. I'm sorry to genderize that, but it's Burns must have done that too. He must have walked into a room and melted the room. A good orator can melt a room.
He was the life of the party. He was talked about as being the life of the party. Everyone wanted to talk to him and hang out with him, have a drink with him.
And there was most people in their position of celebrity, give or take Instagram ones, are there for a reason. All the people I've worked with, minus a couple, you can see why they got to where they're meant to be, because you can actually sense their brilliance. It would have been called X Factor if we weren't tarnished by a quite tacky show. But there is an X Factor, and there is a star quality, and hence Instagram's a bit weird because it sort of does bring a leveling to it, and hence. Not wishing to bring up too much, but the coronavirus is one of those things where royalty's been affected, politicians have been affected, rich will be affected, poor will be very badly affected. But it's disease and illness, Instagram. Whoops, I'm linking those two things. It's those leveling points. It's those leveling points when actually, in fact, Robert Burns would have just said, "A man's a man, and a person's a person, and a humanity is just humanity." And this moment of this is actually almost like the death of celebrity, the whole virus, because it has leveled it. There is nothing special about celebrity right now. In fact, you don't even want to hear it. So as a publicist, it's going to be, I think the next 18 months are going to be really weird. As every actor rushes to try and be relevant, how do they actually do it? How does any poet become relevant? How does any TV star become relevant? How does it all work? Instagram has been leveled. Celebrity has been leveled. Royalty has been leveled. Politicians have been leveled. In this time, sort of with the coronavirus, it's going to be extremely interesting to see how people and celebrity bounces out of this. How do you, I mean, if you think celebrity is only about talent, relevance, and momentum, well, the momentum's gone. Question now becomes relevance. And the question becomes, how do you now talk as even a performer, whether you're acting or a performer if you're, I mean, musician's a bit different because actually music sort of does come through on this because music it sort of works for anyone at any time. But it's going to be super interesting to see how, I mean, the film industry and the television industry is totally confused. It knows not what to do for the next 9 months. And
I had a thought about that myself, in talking with a couple of my own friends, and it's almost like there's so much of the world that is going to be struggling to get back on their feet and to get their lives back. And so you wonder if to be relevant, you have to acknowledge the rest of the world's struggle and to be willing to be, if you can't help in some way, shape, or form, to at least have words of encouragement to help shed the light onto hope to move forward, but to acknowledge that struggle is going to be, I think, a huge thing for people, because if you come out and you seem disjointed and you don't acknowledge that, and people are going to struggle for a long time, maybe you won't be relevant. I don't know. That's just my thought.
No, it becomes, I mean, I think they're all great thoughts, because what does it look like going forward? Because, I represent a writer who is in the process of writing a film that, thank goodness, is quite upbeat and a bit of entertainment. And I think a lot of films will have to be escapism and light relief. No one will really want to watch a disaster movie. Mm. I mean, who wants darkness at this point? It's going to be hard to place that. As you're absolutely right, we need to sort of acknowledge the world has changed, but this is an acknowledgement that people's struggles are really tough all the time. People have really tough lives, and this is maybe, for us only to notice it in our own struggle is too late. So we do need to acknowledge it a lot sooner. And governments around the world will have to start. I spoke to a mate of mine who's a scientist, and she's been a scientist for 25 years. She goes, for the first time in my life, I feel relevant.
Wow.
And she's been a brilliant scientist all her career. Mm. But now she's feeling relevant. She's about to go back and do her PhD. So, that's kind of weird. That ripple is weird.
Yeah.
Experts become fashionable again, I hope.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny, I was watching a clip, it was 60 Minutes Australia, and this news reporter, for the last 8 years, he's been one of the only Western journalists to go into North Korea and report there. But it's fascinating watching Australian news because they report just the facts, and there's no sensationalism. Yeah. They don't talk about their leaders. They just talk about, okay, here's some facts, what are we going to do about it? Versus in the US, it's all commentary and sensationalism. And it's so fascinating because it
makes a huge difference. And obviously with the ABC network in Australia is, again, more public leaning in the same way as the BBC is publicly funded. So it makes a huge difference. And of course, PBS in America has its place, but it's still beholden to money that it should just get. It should just be given money to run. Yeah. Because at some point you need factual information. I mean, it's a rarity. And I think, we don't trust what we're being taught. We don't trust what we're being told. And none more so than the current president, who's Scottish. But anyway, that Scottish president that we're all so proud of. Yeah, Scotland doesn't acknowledge that one too much. I wonder why. We should probably acknowledge that one. We should acknowledge it. Have that.
I'm looking for the whiskey. No,
I was going to say something. Which bottle shall I reopen?
no. I'm probably only 25 minutes away from you. There'll be no traffic.
Well, bring a bottle and a sleeping bag.
I know. Very fun. Daniel, this has been delightful talking to you. I feel like we could have conversation for hours here. I don't know how.
Well, we probably could if we worked out if I worked out how to use Zoom a bit better.
No, but you're fascinating, and I've just been reading about your career and different things that you've done, and you're very intelligent, and you have just such great thought, and I think just your insights and the fact that you're looking at humanity as a whole right now is huge, and you're looking around, and one of the things we tried to do with our virtual Tartan Day is to highlight, some people, some very small business owners that are coming forward and trying to help right now. We found this little candle maker out on the Isle of Horace who's making hand sanitizer. There's so many things and so many good stories about people right now, and coming forward, and I think just that you've got this insight and you've got your pulse on what it is moving forward we're going to potentially have to do, and looking at humanity as a whole and how is this going to be, and very thoughtful.
Well, thank you. That's kind of you to say that, and I think we all have our own responsibility, and we all have to take it, because what else is there? I mean, there is nothing else, and I think, to sort of close that off, is Scotland is realistic, and Scotland is tough, and Scotland has its own struggles for good and bad every day, like every country, but we're still going to look out for each other, even when it comes down to it, and that's not, I don't feel that as much south of the border, nor do I find it so much across the Atlantic. I think Scotland it'll be the first people to hit each other, but they'll be the first people to help each other up as well.
The fortitude of Scotland, as it were.
Yeah, it's made from girders.
Love it.
Very cool. Well, Daniel, thank you so much. I just love talking to you every single time. So, and I just really appreciate your generosity. And, after this is all over, I'm very much looking forward to grabbing some whiskey. We're
all going to have a jig.
Yes, please.
We are going to jig like you've never jigged before.
I'm going to count on this.
I'm clearing the furniture now.
Hopefully sooner than later. And thank you so much for your support of ScotWeek and our endeavors. And we greatly appreciate that.
You will succeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
See you later.